to JYR Trades once again. This video right here is for Tuesday's session for March the 17th. I have been out and about, decided to take my family on a vacation the last couple of days, and I didn't take my Chromebook or my laptop to do any of the live trading on there, or to do any of the video editing or the videos here for the video journaling. So I decided when I get back home I would take care of it, and that's what I pretty much am doing right now. So I just did Wednesday's video, separate video. Check that video out because that one has really good stuff. It seems like the more you video or journal, the more you remember, the more you start to see newer disguises, but ultimately it's the same results. Okay, and so I'm just looking at, I just did Wednesday's video and I'm about to do Tuesdays, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's some similarities there, but it is a different setup when it's all said and done. But let's go ahead and talk about it. All right, so first things first, so this is London. All right, when you look at overnight, Asia decided to pull downwards, right? You can see that there was definitely some move to the downside, and if London decides to continue that, it creates a major imbalance. But here London decided to say, wait a minute, you want to go down, I want to go up. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at that context right there, it looks automatically, well, not automatically, but it's giving us a good indication that we're entering, New York is going to enter into a balanced state. Okay, and so with the next couple of steps that I'm going to talk about, it's going to confirm that. So where does New York open? Let's look at our white lines. These two white lines represent New York value from the previous New York day, New York AM, New York PM. When you do your fixed range volume profile, it gives you a value area high, value area low, and this is it right here. Okay, this is it right here, and so this represents that right there. Okay, so this purple line right here represents my mid session of London right here. So if I were to do a measurements using my fib here, you would see that from top to bottom, this is my 50. All right, so this is definitely the mid session here. All right, here we have our blue line, and this is our mid session right here for Asia. So where are our mids? All right, in reference to price as well. So first things first, price is opening outside of New York value. So technically, by definition, okay, that's supposed to be either an initiative, a repair, or an expansion. But remember, just because structure says it's gonna be like that, it doesn't mean that it's going to behave like that, because you have to take a lot of other things into consideration. In this case, the mids. Where are our mids? Okay, so by definition, again, when we're looking at where price open outside and above New York value, we're looking, technically speaking, for a long position, right? And so when you look at it here, you're like, okay, I kind of like this long position, why not? Possibly so. But then look at our mids. Our mids, we got one at the bottom end of New York value, and you have the other one leaking further south. And then you have our two red lines, which are our PLC. One is for London and one is for Asia. Those are also leaking south. So right there, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking already at a conflict. We're looking at possibly a balance or a rotation. All right, so let's see what happened when price opened up. We have our auction 0 right here. This is my Remitar auction 0. This is telling me where fair value price was considered fair um, from the previous day. Once New York opens, it's going to migrate. Now it migrated north, right? And so that right there is telling us that we are looking for a a bull move according to um, right now the way everything's set up, right? Only issue is that our mids are telling us that it's going to balance itself out because of the location of the mids. Okay, and so what I did is once our new auction zero migrated, I went ahead and put my 120 point box, 60 points this way, 60 points in this direction. And what that usually tells me is that price is usually going to either rotate within the range of that box, or it might either fake out one side and then come back to the other side, okay, when it's gonna make the move, right? So here what I was waiting for is, to be honest with you, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable because of the mids. The mids were telling me a different story from where we were opening. If the mids would have been leaking north, then I would have felt definitely more comfortable going for a long. But here, this was not the case. Remember that every day the market's going to give you a different disguise, and it's up to us to really take a look at it, be patient, and to digest it. And once we see a permission, then we take a trade. So what I saw, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, this is my fib based on the session logic. If you're wondering how I get the measurement for the fib here, is I simply measure say the highest point of either London or Asia, whichever is the highest, to the most bottom. So from here to here I measure this. If say this gives me 300 points, I get a 150 point measurement fib. So from 0 to 1 would be the 150 points. This is where I put my 0, the new auction 0 there. Alright, and I put my 120 point box here. So what I waited here on this particular day, I just didn't feel comfortable with the way the mids were located. Something kept telling me that this was going to be a rotational day. Again, just because we're opening outside of value, it doesn't mean that it owes us a repair, an initiative, or an expansion, right? And so that's where patience kind of pays off. And so I decided to wait and see if price was really going to move. If price was really going to move in this direction here. And sorry, I'm having a thought here that just kind of crossed my mind here. These mids here are a little bit off here. They're not actually part of it. Apologize for that. That's what was throwing me off there. So I was like, okay. I just didn't feel comfortable with taking it long here, even though it gave me an entry Remitar. I just didn't feel like it was a true expansion day, a true initiative day, because of the location of the mids. Again, if the mids had been up here, leaking along with our POCs up here, maybe one POC here, one here, I would have felt comfortable with that. I would have said, okay, it's going to retrace back to the POC and then take off. And that wasn't the case. Everything was pointing south. Even though Remitar migrated up, the mids were telling me a different story. So I felt like if at best it's going to be a balanced day. And so what did I wait for? I waited for the box. On this particular box here, I looked at it and I said, well, let's see if price really decides to get away from it. And I realized that's the other thing too. When you're looking at it live, you gotta look at the tempo of the candles. When it's an initiative, a true initiative, a true expansion, a trend, it's gonna have a certain kind of speed that you can almost tell by it. And here, what was kind of the giveaway, that it was just the way it was right here. You see this right here? It wasn't a move that just went straight up. It was just going slowly. So when I saw that, I was like, I don't think it's a true expansion day. I don't think so. Again, the mids were the other thing holding you back. Think about the mids as like weights down here. This is they're trying to hold on to this value and they're pulling it down. You had the point of controls here, and the mids here, they were telling me there's a conflict there. Yes, it migrated up and it did make a move here, but it only allowed a limited amount of move to the top side. So what did I do, ladies and gentlemen? I decided to take a trade once price came back into the 50 and it rejected. I took a trade, I think somewhere around here. Once I saw the bodies clearing the box, I took a trade here. It gave me a little bit of drawdown and I targeted almost the 12 here. But I learned that once price is coming back down, you need to target the 0 or perhaps the other side of the balance. In this case, it's the 50, the 25. The way I was looking at VWAP here, the way it was moving, I'd probably say targeting the 25 would have been more ideal. But then again, look, price did end up coming down to the 50 twice. Okay. Now, I was on vacation, like I said. I was out and about. And at one point I went back into the chart and it was right around here, and I saw the move it was already here. But had I seen that once price went past the 0, okay, because right here it tags it, you see that, but it never goes past the 12, the negative 12. Once price, and you see a candle go past negative 12 and it's under my 20 SMA, my trend EMA, and you have the red trend EMA leading here, I would have targeted at that point the edge of that box, or like I said, ideally the 50. Why the 50 or the negative 50? Because this is where the balance is within the trade. Based on how I saw New York open outside of value, and yes, Remitar did migrate up, and it did migrate a decent amount. Okay, I want to say this is probably like a 70-point move. Actually, it was a good amount there, 135 points. So it was not a small move. However, the mids and the POCs were holding it back. That's the way I saw it. And so I did take this trade right here. Okay, it was a good 30+ point banger here. But in all honesty, I should have targeted the 0. It probably would have been a good probably well over 50 points there. Okay. Let me take a look here. I don't know, maybe around here. Like I said, I did about 30 points. Yeah, I was around there. But if I had targeted the 0, yeah, 55 points. And to be honest with you, I think the negative 12 would have been a good one there, because usually price is going to come back, reclaim negative 12, try to make another move up to the box, and then eventually come back down once again. And this move over here that I would have taken right around the negative 12 to the box, again, another close to 40 points. You do the 50, you're looking at again 50 points. Okay, So with those two particular trades right there, again, depending on where you're at here, uh, you know, close to 100 points. But like I said, you don't need 100 points to start making progress. You just need a good 30 points, 20 points every day, knowing your edge, knowing your system. For me particularly, again, learning the structure. What is the structure, the language telling us? And for me, the language was telling us, hey, I want to fool people into believing that we're going to go longs because we're opening outside of New York value, on top of New York value. However, there were other things that we had to look at. Was anything dragging us, holding us back down? Oh, I got my son here. He's trying to get my attention. He wants everyone to subscribe to JYR Trades, right? All right, so with that said, I think yeah. So I took that trade, and if you look at once price came up on VWAP, it had a couple mean reversions, and it kept going back to zero migration, as you can see there. And
subscribe and like the video.
all right, buddy. So yeah, so overall, it was a balanced day. It was not a. It was not. It was a fake trend initiative day turned rotational day. That's what it turned out to be today, on that particular day and on Tuesday. So remember that on rotational days, do not force a trend. Do not force initiative. Make it an in and out quick, and figure out where it's gonna rotate, where it's gonna turn around, and you should be able to get a good trade in there. As always, guys, if you like the content, you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button, like, share, and comments. Okay, we'll see you on the next one.